Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Breaking the Game show here on the Nothing But Net channel on Dash Radio. I am Stephen Gillespie, and joining me, as always, is my co-host Austin. Austin, how you doing today, brother?
I'm doing good, Steven. It's Christmas Eve as of while we're recording this. I think this will come out on Christmas Day. So, happy holidays to everybody. Happy holidays to you. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. Happy holidays to you and yours, and Merry Christmas. And same for everybody else listening today on Friday on Christmas Day. Just appreciate you guys giving us a little bit of time out of your busy day to spend time with your loved ones. And it means a lot to us, right, Austin?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. It's a fun time of year. So we've had some fun shows lately, and hopefully this will be another one.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Well, today, what we're going to be talking about, Austin, is, we've talked a little bit about, some of the games and stuff. It's still kind of early to really get into who's who in the zoo right now in the NBA. So I thought it would be fun. The NBA's general manager survey came out this week, and I thought today would be just, kind of a fun day to dive into it. This is kind of in our wheelhouse. It's not just like, hey, who's a good player in the NBA? They ask a little deeper questions than that. They do this annually. So we're just going to go ahead and go over some of the topics and find out, obviously, who's in the lead for some of these, just segments, if you will, and who was kind of the lead last year. And we can just kind of reflect on where the game has gone over the last year. Austin, how does that sound?
Sounds like a lot of fun. Sounds like it'll be, interesting to kind of see what's changed from last year to this year. So I'm ready to get into it for sure.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. The first one that was asked for the general managers, well, the first one listed, I don't know if this is the first one asked, is that which team will win the 2021 NBA Finals? Austin, just to refresh everybody's memory on how last season went, the Los Angeles Clippers actually won this little poll here amongst the NBA general managers. By 46%, they led the way. This season, Austin, the Los Angeles Lakers are far and away the favorite at 81%. While the Clippers are knocked back to the second place spot at 11%. Austin, does this kind of check out in your mind when you kind of brainstorm how general managers would survey this? Does this kind of check out with what you would expect?
Yeah, it definitely does. I think that this is pretty indicative of what most people think about the way the NBA is going to look this year. Some people think the Clippers aren't even really the second best team anymore now, and they've kind of dropped even further. But, a lot of people do still trust in Kawhi Leonard, and Paul George is still a really good second banana or whatever you want to call him, Robin, I guess. And they've got, a coach that's won an NBA title. So they've got a good supporting cast still. They didn't make a whole lot of moves from last year, but I like Serge Ibaka going there. I think he helps them a lot. But, the Lakers, obviously, they won the title. They won the offseason. There wasn't really a whole lot, more they could do to kind of secure this top spot. And I think that 81% shows that. That's a pretty big percentage of, teams, GMs that think, well, the same team is going to win. Compared to last year, I mean, not even half of the GMs, were on the Clippers, and they were number one. So, it's a little surprising that it's quite that high to me. Honestly, I kind of feel like, every year there's got to be at least 5 or 6 teams that think they have a pretty good shot at winning. So, you take them out, how many other teams didn't vote for the Lakers? Hardly any. So, it was a pretty dominating kind of victory in this question for the Lakers, I guess.
Well, if you had to guess, if you were surprised that the Clippers weren't necessarily the second best team, who would you be giving your vote to had you been a general manager at this time?
Brooklyn, Miami, one of those teams, maybe Milwaukee, if you do think Milwaukee got better, and, they were the number one team in the East last year. But Brooklyn with Kyrie and KD, just, the talent level is there for them to be every bit as good as the Lakers. So, one of them for sure, but I would most likely still pick LA. So,
well, yeah, and Brooklyn and Miami, just so everybody who's not watching right now, they did receive votes as well. So although they didn't place second, they were still receiving votes. And Austin, real quick, before we get to our next one, I just want to kind of unveil the way that general managers thinks that each conference is going to break down. In the Eastern Conference, they think that Milwaukee is going to lead in the Eastern Conference, followed by Brooklyn, Miami, Boston, Philadelphia, Toronto, Indiana. They only have the top 7 teams listed. Other teams that were receiving votes where Orlando is on here as well. So maybe
Mhm.
teams are fancying Orlando taking that 8 seed. Austin, does that kind of sound with how you would see the East shake out?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, those teams are all definitely going to be in the mix. I would, I'd have, I'd have Atlanta in there for sure.
As well as I
Um,
would too.
yeah, probably almost ahead of a team like Toronto. I'm not sold that Toronto's going to be as good as they have been in the past. Kyle Lowry's getting older. They lost their two, big men on the inside. Their whole kind of inside presence is completely changed. If Chris Boucher makes a leap and is a little bit better, then they'll be all right. And OG needs to keep improving, but as they are currently right now, I'm not sure that they're the sixth best team in the East, even, to be totally honest. I think Indiana could jump them this year. I think Atlanta could jump them this year. Trae Young looked really good last night. So
Yeah.
I think the way things are going so far, at least, Atlanta looks like the one team that's kind of been left off there that shouldn't have.
Yeah, and we got to remember too that this stuff was compiled, mostly during the off season, so it's not as real time as probably the way that we're reading this right now and evaluating the little bit of game action that we've got to see. And we'll
Right.
bounce right now, real quick, Austin, to the Western Conference. Obviously, the Lakers are the number 1 seed, followed by the Clippers. Then you have Denver, Dallas, Portland, Utah, Golden State, and Phoenix as your 8 teams. That sounds about right. Probably not in that order, Austin. But do you have any big grievances against the 8 teams selected?
No, not at all. Actually, about 2 hours before the opening games of the season, a couple of days ago, I actually posted on Off the Ball network.com that my article about where I thought every team would finish in each conference. And really the only change from this pretty much that I see is I think I had Utah a little bit higher. I had Portland. I'm not sold on Portland. I think they're gonna struggle this year. And then I had the Clippers at like 4th, I think, which, they could very easily still take the 2nd spot. So, there's no real gripe there. I just thought, the Clippers didn't have the best offseason, whereas a lot of these other teams improved. And, Denver, everybody's kind of expecting Michael Porter Jr. to kind of take that next step. So I just had Denver and Dallas ahead of the Clippers. And then I think I had Portland down below Phoenix at number 9. But they anywhere from 4 to 9 for just about any of those teams after the top 3 is really, wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, you just kind of realign that however you see fit. I'm right there with you. So the next, question that was asked is who will win the 2021 Kia MVP? Austin, number 1 will probably surprise the both of us. Probably not just. It's not going to be because of his performance, right? He's an incredible player. He's been the MVP before. He's been the defensive player of the year before. But 32% of the NBA's general managers believe that Giannis Antetokounmpo will repeat as a MVP. Now, Austin, I don't see this happening, but I don't think it's going to be because of his play. I just think that fatigue is a real thing, and now he just re-signed that contract to stay in Milwaukee. That storyline's in there. Basically, this is his team. This is his, time to really take hold of that, advance past the 2nd round, advance past the 3rd round, and try to really just make an appearance in the NBA Finals. That's really all he has left, is at least a Finals appearance, as opposed to maybe just a ring at large, right? But do you agree with Giannis Antetokounmpo at 32% taking the MVP?
No, I kind of agree with you. I think I just don't see it happening. I think there's voter fatigue is kind of a real thing, and the fact that he has yet to get Milwaukee to the finals or to the Eastern Conference Finals. Like they didn't even make that last year. Those things matter to voters, and it's going to be kind of hard, I think, for a lot of people to sit there and say, okay, I'm going to keep giving the best player in the league award, this guy, this award over and over when he doesn't take his team to the championship. It is a regular season award, but a lot of people take that into account still. But this list is just about as good as it gets. All these guys are going to be in the running for it, I think, this year. Luka looks like he's going to have a good year. Anthony Davis, I'm sure, is going to have another great year. LeBron is always going to kind of be talked about as long as he's, still LeBron. But, if they do actually just base it on regular season, performance, it's going to be hard not to give it to him. But I'm with you. I think people will go a different direction of that just because they're wanting to see something new there.
Yeah, and you just ran down the most of the remaining guys receiving votes. Doncic got 21%. LeBron and AD tied at 18%. That's pretty poetic right there. Kevin Durant with 7%, and then Nikola Jokic at 4%. Now, maybe fatigue has set in, at least to some extent, because last year Giannis won the poll last season, but at 52%. This season it's only at 32%. So, still in the lead, but it's trimmed down. So, and I was scrolling this list, Austin. A name that I didn't see on here at all.
What's that?
Steph Curry. That's kind of weird, right? Like you figure that a former MVP and
yeah. I know. He's got 71 games to go. You never know. He could.
That's right.
Turn it around. There's been one game, but Steven's alluding to the fact that I picked Steph Curry to be the MVP at a while ago, and he didn't look so good in their first game, and he's not even on this list of possible MVPs. So I guess I picked more of a dark horse than I thought I did. So we'll see how it goes.
We will, and it's all right, man. It happens to the best of us.
What more can Giannis do? Really, honestly, he won 52% of the vote. He won 52% of the vote last year, and then he goes and wins the MVP and the Defensive Player of the Year award. Has a ridiculous season, and they're like, 20% less people think you're going to do it again now. So it's just like, that's a little surprising. So,
and again, I think it's that that fatigue that sets in with voting the same person every time. I think even among general managers, they're probably factoring in voter fatigue, and obviously too the ascension of Luka Doncic. I don't think that we can discredit that. Within that same breath, right? Like, yes, Giannis was great last season. He was my pick for MVP. He was your pick for Defensive Player of the Year, and seeing him get both of those awards. It's really hard unless he goes on and wins like the finals, because typically these awards aren't unveiled until after the season itself is completed, not just the regular season, but the entire season, which is also kind of weird for a regular season award, right? But, it is interesting to see, even amongst general managers, that he's received 20% less of the vote. But again, I think it's because the ascension of Luka Doncic has a big part to do with that.
Definitely makes sense. That's probably a good point, Stephen.
All righty. Well, we'll roll into it next. Austin, this seems like our wheelhouse. This is something that we would probably talk about on our Twitter group chat. This next one, it says, if you were starting a franchise today and could sign any player in the NBA, and they're talking to real life general managers in the NBA. If you could sign any player in the NBA, who would it be? Austin, I want to ask you this question before we unveil the results. Who would you select if you could pick any player in the NBA?
Oh, I want to ask you too, but I think I'd probably go with Zion Williamson. I love the kid. I think he's going to be out of this world. I just like watching him play. I think he's 20 years old. He's a freak of nature. He's already kind of taken the NBA by storm in the little time that he's actually been on the court. So I would, I'd have a hard time not taking Luka Doncic, but I think ultimately I would go with Zion. What about you?
I would take Luka at 43%. I would even make an argument for a Jason Tatum, but obviously if I was a general manager and I could pick between the two of them, I think Luka is a little bit more tantalizing. Before we unveil who actually took home, the honors to be selected in this little segment, last season, Giannis Antetokounmpo was 86% of general managers would take Giannis Antetokounmpo. Nowhere near that high this year. He's actually split right down the middle. Both Giannis and Luka share the number one spot at 43%, followed by Anthony Davis at 7%. Other people receiving votes are your Zion Williamson, there, Austin, and also LeBron James at 35, 36 years old. Teams would, people are still throwing his name out there as a player that you would re-sign. And again, for these general managers, they can't pick their own guys. So this isn't Rob Pelinka saying I would definitely take LeBron James. So there's another team's general manager that would say, hey, I want to take LeBron James if I could sign anybody in the NBA. Does that surprise you?
No, not really. I mean, he's been to the finals almost every year for the last decade, so
Yeah.
it'd be hard to say you wouldn't want to start a franchise with him, even if you just got a few great years with him. You've got a few years where you're kind of guaranteed a spot in the, at least in the contenders list, pretty high up there. So, it's not super surprising. I'm sure there's somebody out there that would take him over everybody else.
I wonder if it's Michael Jordan. It's probably a small market team. It's got to be like a Sacramento or a Charlotte.
Probably Utah.
Could be Cleveland.
Could be Cleveland. There you go.
That would be funny if
Could be any GM that's crazy enough to think of, maybe LeBron will get wind of that I voted for him and want to come here next.
There's probably a little bit of that in there. Maybe that information will be leaked.
Yeah. All right. There you go.
So we'll roll into this next question that was posed, Austin. It says, which player forces opposing coaches to make the most adjustments? I'm not a super big fan of the guy that is listed as number one, not even just because of the headlines that he's been making recently, but just his style of play. It's not my favorite style to watch. He's very much a game breaker, though. He's very much a cheat code, a stat sheet darling, if you will. And just to let guys know, last season, James Harden won this award at 48%. This year, he takes home this, illustrious honor at only 32%. Austin, do you agree that James Harden makes coaches have the most adjustments in game?
Not really. I mean, I know he makes a lot. He forces you to make a lot of adjustments, but he's not, like some otherworldly playmaker. He doesn't like to share the ball and move the ball around a lot. I feel like you put a good, strong double team on him and make him pass the ball, and that's you kind of go from there. But in terms of
he does
the most adjustments,
6 assists per game.
True. But the overall, like the most overall adjustments, I would feel like it's probably LeBron James or somebody that's a ball dominant player that requires a lot of defensive attention, but they can also kind of find his teammates in the right spots. The next two guys on this list are LeBron and Steph Curry, and I think they make more sense for this answer than Harden. I mean, I get why they're saying Harden, because we've hardly ever seen a one-on-one type of scorer like as good as he is. But those two, like Steph Curry, when he's on and running around and running off 3 or 4 screens every possession, you're completely pulling the entire defense towards him. And when LeBron's double teamed, he finds the open guy every single time. And I just think, that causes more adjustments than anything. But I guess the GMs think differently. So,
well, I mean, let's speak a little bit to James Harden's credit here. We did see the past 2 seasons, teams would literally send 2 guys to go meet him at half court for him to pass the ball, because anytime he crosses that half court line, he's an instant threat off the drive. He does pass. I don't think that he's as big as a ball hog as other people might, but I certainly do agree that he does have a tendency to dribble a hole on the floor, right? So, he did fall back from 48% to 32%. LeBron James ended up getting 29% of the general manager votes, Steph Curry at 11%, while Giannis, Luka, and Nikola Jokic all shared 7%. Really, Austin, I think in a weird way, Nikola Jokic might be the one that I would take, because there's not another center in the NBA. I think Bam Adebayo is probably the closest thing, but he doesn't have the ability for a big to be able to take the ball up the floor to where your center is literally in a different spot that night than he would be 99.9% of other games. Austin, what do you think about that?
That's a good point. Not a whole lot of teams have a big man that they kind of run their whole offense through like that. So it is probably, something different that they're not super used to. So I definitely think, all these guys on this list, obviously you have to game plan.
They're pretty good.
That even the guys that were just others receiving votes, Anthony Davis and Damian Lillard, like we've seen Damian Lillard kind of start looking a little bit more and more like Steph Curry and James Harden year in and year out with these 35-foot threes that they hit, that these guys make now. Like, just imagine how hard it is to stay in front of one of these guys anyway. Now you got to stay in front of them from 35 feet out on in. So it's just the thought of trying to guard any of them, kind of gives me nightmares regardless. So
I will say that Marcus Smart puts on a masterclass every time that he defends Giannis Antetokounmpo. So if any coach needs to make an adjustment, they just need to break out the old pen and paper and watch Marcus Smart defend.
Find him a glue guy.
Find him a glue guy. He is a glue guy of the year. Probably will be a strong consideration for for this season, Austin.
Right.
All right. Well, Austin,
Defend the
this was a
crown.
question that we asked on our show and on our network several times, and obviously general managers were posed the same question. It says, which player is most likely to have a breakout season in 2020, 2021? And my guy that I selected, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, shared the number one spot at 15% with Michael Porter Jr., followed by De'Aaron Fox at 12%, Devin Booker at 8, and then your guy, Zion Williamson, at 8% as well. So splitting the fourth spot with Devin Booker. And there's a whole list of characters here receiving votes too, Austin. You know, DeAndre Ayton, Bol, Mikal Bridges, Luka Doncic. So weirdly enough, Luka Doncic, Kevin Durant, weirdly
Kevin Durant
enough.
makes no sense being on that list. I saw it and I was looking at it. I was like, what does Kevin Durant have to
Maybe
do
the
to have a
injury. I don't know.
I think that's probably where that came from. But what in the world would a Kevin Durant breakout season look like if he hasn't had one already?
I have no idea, but Gordon Hayward is on here as well. Tyler Hero, you know, the rock star of the bubble. Lowry Marketing was an interesting one. John Morant, I don't know what a breakout season looks like for him. I think that Jamal Murray is on this list. I don't know what a breakout year looks like for him. And then Jason Tatum from Boston is on here. I don't know what a breakout year looks like for all of these guys. If they do break out, it's going to be incredible. But overall, Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and Michael Porter Jr. are the co-winners of this illustrious segment, Austin. Do you agree with those takes? Is there somebody that you would put ahead of them?
I mean, I think I wouldn't put anybody ahead of him, but I think RJ Barrett should be somewhere on this list because, you know, he's young. He is very talented. All the talk about him coming into the draft last year was that he's, you know, an NBA scorer already. He's going to be able to score the ball. He's going to, you know, put up points. And then he kind of lost his shot from college, at least. And if he gets a little bit more efficient this year and leads the Knicks to a few more wins, you know, I think he could be, you know, squarely in this mix of these guys. But you've got to think that SGA is poised for having a great year. He's, you know, one of about 4 guys most people can really name that even still plays in Oklahoma City. And it's not that they don't have NBA players. They changed their team so much. I don't remember who they kept and who they traded through the offseason. So
Their third best player is yet to be drafted. So that's
right. There you go. So yeah, I think their third best player is probably a 9th grader right now.
Probably.
But you know, DeAndre Ayton, I don't know. Bol's probably still a year away. Mikal Bridges could have a really good year. I
like Mikal Bridges
being poised to kind of break out. And you know, I think a breakout season from a John Morant or a Jamal Murray would definitely be. Well, Jamal Murray would be like playing like he did in the bubble all year, because he definitely stepped it up. And John Morant had a 44-point game in the opening game of the season, so maybe that's what it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably right. And last year, De'Aaron Fox won this award at 19%, so it was a little less tight of a race. But it's funny to see him being last year's breakout player winner at 19%. Now he's third place at 12%. You know, what does De'Aaron Fox have to do to no longer be on this list, Austin?
Lead Sacramento to somewhat relativity, I think. I think they've got to be at least, relative, at least, win some games. And they did. They beat Denver last night.
They whopped them,
which is not something that I expected. Yeah, they took him to overtime, and he played good. He looked good. I don't know. I kind of feel like
Marvin Bagley would have made more sense for a Sacramento Kings player.
That's what I was just going to say. I think Marvin Bagley is the guy for the Kings.
I'm sorry to steal your thunder there.
Is going to need that they're going to need to take the next step. You didn't steal my thunder. We just think alike because that's how it goes around here.
We're just smart.
Exactly.
All right. Well, this next segment, Austin, I'm just going to read off the starting 5 that they have here. So basically, for anyone who can't see this piece of paper in my hand, which is probably everybody listening right now, each general manager was asked what X position is the best in the NBA. So, from point guard to center, granted, if we still have positions in the NBA, I don't know anymore with the way that all stars and all NBA teams are voted anymore. But for the sake of this segment, positions exist. And I'm going to go ahead, Austin, and list off the player that won each position and the percentage that they won by. All right. So the best point guard in the NBA, Steph Curry at 30%. Last year, he won it at 90%. So that's quite a big fall, right? Yeah. At shooting guard, James Harden won it at 68% this season. Another big fall. Last season, he was at 86%. LeBron James is listed at the best small forward this season at 57%. Last year, Kawhi Leonard won it at 62%. The best power forward in the NBA is Giannis Antetokounmpo at 46%. He won it last year at 59%. And then the best center in the NBA, 50% of general managers have Nikola Jokic. That's actually up from last year at 48%. Austin, what do you think about the NBA's general manager starting five?
I think it's fairly spot on. I mean, the one that you can really kind of make a big stink about would be point guard, I think, just off of what we saw in the first game, but Steph very well may still
do good. Damian Lillard had a bad game as well, so
true. But it's the only one I think is close.
Yeah.
Even hardly at all. So what was most interesting to me is LeBron's in the top 5 and 3 of these categories.
Correct. Yes, that was incredible. I'm glad that you caught that. Yeah.
Small forward, power forward, and point guard. He's second for power forward, first for small forward, and fifth in point guard.
Was it fourth or fifth? Yeah, he's in top 5. It doesn't matter. Yeah, I'm glad that you caught that. I was going to bring it up if you didn't mention it. That's just
insane. James Harden, I'm not sure how his numbers from last year went down, because to me, there's really not even a good argument to be made about any of these other guys on this list. I mean, Bradley Beal's good, but like what James Harden does offensively is just insane. And he, believe it or not, regardless of what people say or what the narrative's always been around him, he did play pretty well on defense last year. He's gotten a lot better. So, it was kind of surprising that he's not still at around 86% like he was. And it's also kind of surprising that people still think Damian Lillard's better than Luka Doncic, because I kind of feel like the prevailing, thought on that is that as Luka's time is pretty much right now. I mean, he's like a MVP favorite on a lot of people's ballots, and Damian Lillard's not, wasn't very high on that list. If he was on there, I think he was on the receiving votes part, but
yeah, well, for one, he was only 3 position points behind Damian Lillard. And again, I think that this positionless NBA didn't really do him any favors in this, right? Because he was third at point guard. He was tied for second at shooting guard, and he also received votes at small forward. So
that's
no one
what I mean. Like,
really knows.
I don't know how you say he's not a point guard. I think he runs the show there. I think he runs that offense, and I think it's pretty obvious. Even if they have another, guard playing with him that's maybe, smaller than him, that may guard the point guard on the other team, I think Luka's a point guard for sure. So
I would have loved to seen Nikola Jokic get votes for point guard. That would have just been incredible.
Right?
That would have been really spectacular.
Well, hey, I'm sure at some point this year LeBron will play center, so can we throw him in there too?
You can put him wherever. He could even probably get some coach of the year points, even general manager.
What do you think of the idea that like you said, the all NBA teams and the all-star, they almost don't even really use center as a position on there anymore. I don't think they do. But they still ask the GMs, pick the best center. Like,
well, what's really interesting about that to me, Austin, is that they say that the center position is gone, but I think that there's more depth at center than there is power forward. So the fact that they say that, but then again, and not to get sidetracked, but recently there's been a whole lot of debate on whether or not Anthony Davis is a better power forward already at this point in his career than Tim Duncan. And we've talked about this a little bit, because Tim Duncan played at the height basically of the power forward position, like kind of that golden era. And who's the second best power forward in the NBA right now?
Giannis. If he's not the best, or
is
Anthony Davis
forward?
I don't know. I think so.
I don't know. Is he center? Is he a small forward? Like it's just, again, it's weird. Like you don't have like a first.
According to this, it's LeBron James. So he's the second best power forward, plays with him. So I don't know who said that or why people are saying
LeBron
that,
is listed as a higher power forward than.
That's what I mean. That's what I was just gonna say. If Anthony Davis is as good as Tim Duncan, then how good is Giannis? How good is LeBron James? Because LeBron's the only one on this list that you can make an argument even in the same class as Tim Duncan, at least yet. I mean, do people not remember that wasn't that long ago that the Spurs were the best team every year, or every other year they were in the finals, or
we're not young guns anymore, Austin. We're in our 30s.
He kept them. I understand that, but he kept them at the top from the time when Shaq and Kobe were dominating the West all the way up until LeBron was going back to Cleveland the second time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a long time. We talk about how long LeBron's been on top. Like, Tim Duncan was arguably one of the best 2 or 3 players in the world for 15 years too. You know, I mean, he wasn't as flashy and didn't say anything in the media and didn't really talk a whole lot and just let his game do the talking. And it wasn't sexy, but you know, there's nothing like that Tim Duncan bank shot. I mean, you knew it was going to go in every single time. I mean, it was like there was nothing you could do about it. I remember playing with him, not to get off topic too far, but I remember playing with him on the old NBA live games, and it was almost like anytime you had Tim Duncan, if you just hit that little jumper from the elbow, it was like a cheat code. Like he never missed it. You know,
it was like that in real life.
Yeah, and so it just people get caught up in the
recency
bias of things, and it's ridiculous. Like Anthony Davis is really, really good, but Tim Duncan is, one of the best ever.
We're not here to discredit Anthony Davis, but I think the disrespect given to Tim Duncan, is pretty outlandish. Sorry, we'll get back on track here, Austin. We'll go live some other day and talk about this matchup, right? So general managers were asked who is the best defensive player in the NBA. Austin, I want you to take this one away because I mean, your guy is 4th place in single digits amongst general manager voting.
You know, this shows me that there's 3 frauds on this list and then the greatest defensive player of all time. No, anybody that watches our show kind of knows our little running joke that I think Rudy Gobert is the greatest player ever, just because he's so good defensively in the way he rebounds, and Steven likes to give me a hard time for it. But I mean, in all reality, this list is pretty good. I would put Gobert ahead of Kawhi Leonard. I just haven't seen Kawhi really show me that much great defensively the last couple of years. You know, the last time I really feel like I remember him being really, really elite defensively was probably maybe in Toronto, but really thinking back to when he was in San Antonio was when that, ever since then, he's kind of taken more of an offensive load year in and year out. And, guys don't have, unlimited energy. They have to kind of conserve things somewhere. And the way as much as he has the ball in his hands now and how much of an offensive load he has, I think that's kind of taken away from a little bit of his effort and intensity defensively, just because it has to. But other than that, I mean, this list is pretty good. I don't know what Rudy Gobert's got to do to get a little bit more respect, though, honestly, in terms of
like Rodney Dangerfield of the NBA right now.
Yeah, the 7% of people think he's the best defensive player in the NBA. 7% of GMs, I think that's low. I'm surprised that Anthony Davis is where he's at 21%. I mean, he's a great defender, and we saw that last game in the finals just how much of a difference he can make on the defensive end. But I think Rudy Gobert does that night in and night out. That's where the difference is, I think, for me.
This is what rings do for you, and this tells me that first impressions last forever. I mean, you got Giannis Antetokounmpo won this award at 46%. Last year, Kawhi won it at 45%. You have Anthony Davis at 21%. Kawhi has fallen from grace, almost 30%, Austin. So people are kind of catching up to what you already know. And then Rudy Gobert at number 4 at 7%. Heat teammates Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler got votes at this too. So, Austin, do you think that they're deserving to be in this?
Definitely. Don't you? I mean, I think Jimmy Butler's always been one of the better defenders in the NBA. And we saw Bam guard 1 through 5 in the finals last year, and legitimately 1 through 5. A lot of people say that, but he's the first person I've ever seen do it with any kind of success.
I mean, Kevin Garnett was really the first guy that I remember that could do 1 through 5 as well. But, I just would have liked to seen a little bit more diversity here in this part. I would have loved to have seen, Ben Simmons get some recognition here. He was arguably one of, if not the best perimeter defender last season. And then my glue guy of the year, Marcus Smart, I would have loved to seen him just get a vote in this segment.
Chris Dunn probably should be in the conversation a little bit every now and then too. I
love Chris Dunn too.
I think by the end of the year he might be now because he was what he did in Chicago last year was pretty special, and people just kind of don't really talk about him much.
No, and he's in a more sexy locale this year and on a team that looks to be on the rise. So hopefully he gets enough playing time behind all of those perimeter players that he's going to be competing for minutes with. And it's going to be hard, but hopefully,
most definitely.
Hopefully he gets the recognition like you said. All right, Austin, who is the best international player in the NBA right now?
Who do you think it is? I disagree with this list. I think it's. I
I
mean,
think, yeah,
I
I
guess
think
Giannis gets
Luka
that
Don-
award, but I think Luka Doncic is the best one.
Yeah, well, last year Giannis got it at 79%. He fell to 68% this year. Luka Doncic was second at 29%, followed by Nikola Jokic at only 4%. I mean, I guess that kind of makes sense, but
Yeah,
there's a lot of great international players in here too. You know, Joel Embiid could have been on this list. You know, there, like I said, a lot of international players doing a lot of great things. I think that it's a little bit closer between Giannis and Luka than GMs would
I
otherwise tell you.
I
So,
think so
Austin.
too. Yeah, that's kind of part of what my issue with it is that um just the width of the difference there 68% to 29% is crazy. I This kind of brings up a question to me that I want your opinion on. If we took the five best international flavor players and the five best American players, who do you think would win?
I think it's still America, but I think that
Mhm.
I think it's a fun game to watch. I think
Yeah,
that should be an
closer than it's
all-star.
probably ever been.
Yeah, and I think it's
Just
only
those
gonna
three.
get closer. Yeah.
Mhm.
That should
Yeah,
be an all-star game, not just like how they do it with the rookies and the second year guys, but
right. That'd be a
should
cool little wrinkle to throw in every now and then.
yeah, I think that would be great. Basically like
Mhm.
us against the world mentality, right?
You know how in soccer they do like those different cups where sometimes you're on your club team and sometimes you're on your country's team, and then sometimes it's like the best of the best in Europe and stuff. It'd be kind of interesting to see them do something like that here, where they just take like the best of all the international players and put them against KD and LeBron and see what they can do.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
It'd be a lot of
And
fun.
we should write a letter to the NBA,
There you
Austin.
go.
All right,
We
let's
can
keep moving.
we can come up with their new All-Star festivities for next year.
I mean, the Elam ending implementation was, very an awesome idea, and I love the idea of the players picking who they want to play with too.
Mm-hmm.
They've added
Fun.
a couple really interesting things. It made for a good little rivalry there for a second
Yes, it
between
did. It's
Hart.
too bad that, with everything that happened, that we're not going to have another All-Star game this year.
Yeah, I mean, at least we get basketball, right? So
Mhm.
I mean, there is that. You're affected because you're in Indiana, so
Yeah.
it makes
Well, we're
sense.
getting it in 24, so it'll just means I have more time to add money to the account to get a better ticket.
There you go. You may not have to mortgage your house again, so
Right.
that'll help.
And by then, hopefully, we'll have media passes or something cool if we're still doing this.
Yeah, I mean, as long as we keep doing what we're doing here on the Nothing But Net channel on Dash Radio, we're bound for bigger and better things. But shout out to Dash Radio, shout out to Nothing But Net channel for giving us a platform to be able to come on and do shows like this. But
Definitely.
Austin, we'll keep rolling here. Which team made the best overall moves this offseason? A lot of teams here. It looks basically like a playoff, seeding. They got the Los Angeles Lakers number one at 37%. The Phoenix Suns at 22%. Interestingly enough, the Oklahoma City Thunder at 15%, sitting at the third spot. The Hawks, Bucks, and Sixers all tied for the fourth position with 7%. And then last, they have the Portland Trailblazers at 4%. Last season, Austin, the Clippers overwhelmingly won this at 82% with the moves that they got for Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Do you think that the Lakers had the best offseason?
I think they did. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that they did. That they won the title last year and then got better all across the board. Basically, they're deeper, they're better offensively. They've got more guys that can do more things. They added shooting to a team that was already a fairly, in the bubble at least, they showed they were a better shooting team than people realized. I don't know if a rookie, taking a little bit of a jump as an off-season move, but Taylor Horton-Tucker kind of getting more minutes has been big for them, or is going to be, I think.
Yeah.
The only gripe I have with this is Oklahoma City doesn't belong on this list. I mean,
I was going to go there. Thank you.
no way, because if you put them on this list, then every year you could just say that the team that decides they're going to just punt on the season and try to stockpile assets did a great job, because you can't say they did a great job yet because we have no clue who those picks are going to be. So
my point exactly.
I don't think they belong on there at all.
It's an incomplete grade right now. At best, it's incomplete.
Right.
They're not going to be competitive. Shea may win Most Improved Player of the Year. Like, that's what they have going for them this season. I don't know how that is the best moves, but let's take into consideration the audience that was asked this question. They're NBA general managers. So,
True.
there's probably a little bit of bias in the fact that, like, okay, they were able to flip all of these older distressed assets, well, not distressed, but like older assets for a team that doesn't really have a direction. And now they can build for years to come. Do you think the fact that they asked general managers is why they were ranked so high?
Yeah, probably. I also feel like if you word it in the right way, I guess you can say they're better off today than they were 3 or 4 months ago because they were never going to go anywhere with the guys that they had anyway. Like they weren't going to be good enough anytime soon for Chris Paul to be on that roster for any good reason. They weren't going to win enough anytime soon to keep Dennis Schroeder there as a sixth man when, they're not even going to have close enough talent to keep him on the bench, as a sixth man. So I get where they're coming from, but so the commenter just said, it's built and building are two different things. They're going to try building something. It's not, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be good. So I appreciate the comment. That was good. I like anybody that listens in. Thank you. Appreciate you checking in with us.
Yeah, but, shout out to Jacob Webb for writing in saying that they kind of butted their way up to third at this position. Where I would have think that the Atlanta.
That they had a better offseason than Atlanta. Atlanta had a great offseason.
Atlanta to me should be number 3 here. But we'll transition now to a similar question. Which one player acquisition, not re-signing or anything like that, what acquisition, so a free agency signing, maybe even a draft pick, is going to have the biggest impact for their team? Number 1 is Chris Paul to Phoenix at 44%. Number 2 is Drew Holiday to Milwaukee at 33%. And then Serge Ibaka to the Clippers was the third best at 7%. Other people, receiving votes were Bogan Bogdanovic in Atlanta. Kevin Durant somehow was under the also receiving votes to Brooklyn, although he was added last season, right? Gordon Hayward to Charlotte, and then Russell Westbrook to Washington. Last season, Austin, Kawhi Leonard won this by 67%. And now we have Chris Paul at 44%. Do you think that Chris Paul is going to have the single greatest impact?
I mean, if Kevin Durant's allowed to be on the list, then no. Because, he's definitely going to have the biggest impact for sure. But I don't know that he counts. I don't really think he does. He was on their team last year. He just didn't play. So if you take him out, yes. I think Russell Westbrook should be higher on this list.
I had a feeling that you were going to go there.
I feel like he belongs in the top 3. I think, going from a team that didn't make the playoffs, got booted in, the bubble, made the bubble, but didn't do anything. And, definitely weren't a playoff team. They're going to be this year, I believe. I don't think there's any way that they're not. And that's, to me, a pretty big impact. Phoenix wasn't a playoff team. They almost made it. But I think everybody kind of thought they were on the rise anyway. I think Chris Paul's definitely number 1, but I think Russell Westbrook should be ahead of Drew Holiday or Serge Ibaka because how much of an impact is he going to make really on Milwaukee? Because he had 25 points in their first game and looked pretty good and
led the team in scoring.
So he may come in and thrive and they may have a good year, but I don't know how much of an impact he's really going to make. Are they going to make the NBA Finals? If they make the NBA Finals, then maybe he belongs on this list, but otherwise.
Well, maybe there was a little bit of prognostication taken into account that, if Milwaukee, because all these general managers have Milwaukee as the number 1 seed again in the Eastern Conference. So maybe they have high hopes for that Drew Holiday acquisition. All right. So transitioning from the best to the most underrated player acquisition, Austin. Number 1 is Serge Ibaka to the Clippers at 15%. Steven Adams to New Orleans and Robert Covington to Portland were tied at second with 11%. Seth Curry was in 4th place at 6%. And then there's a whole bunch of guys. You got, Batum to the Clippers.
Every guy the Lakers signed.
Basically every acquisition that happened, if you heard of an acquisition happening, they're in this collective pool. But Serge Ibaka walks away as the most underrated, not the best, but the most underrated acquisition. Austin, are you buying that?
Yeah, I think so. I wouldn't say that Montrezl Harrell, Marc Gasol, or Dennis Schroeder was underrated at all. I think they were properly rated. I think Kelly Oubre Jr. was properly rated in Golden State. I think Robert Covington was properly rated in Portland. I've heard a good amount of talk about that. Steven Adams and Serge Ibaka are kind of the two that I didn't hear a whole lot about that, kind of flew under the radar a little bit. And they're both going to be big additions for their teams. But there is one other guy way down on this list that I think could be pushing for this one of these top 3 or 4 spots. And that's John Wall in Houston. I don't think people really expected a whole lot from them, but if James Harden hadn't pulled all this stuff and demanded a trade and started all these, distractions, I think Houston would have a really, really dangerous roster this year. But the way things are right now, obviously not. But if and when Harden gets traded and they hand the keys over to John Wall, I think that was a pretty underrated move. But I would say in terms of how much I heard each one of these things talked about, those first 2 guys on the list are right where they belong. I don't know about you, but that's how I feel.
Well, Austin, if ifs and buts were candies and nuts, we'd all have a Merry Christmas, and that's a very appropriate saying today, with it being Christmas Day. So I just want to bring in one guy that I think that if you could watch the opening games for each team and go back and redo this list, I think that Tristan Thompson would fall way up there. He had a really good opening game for the Boston Celtics, and not much expectation, I think, put on him being on the team. You can also put in Jeff Teague. I actually didn't see him on this list at all, and he had a really good game for the Celtics.
That's a really good one, because I think I found out about 2 hours before that game that Jeff Teague even played for Boston. Like, I never heard anything about it. And when I saw that, I was like, that's Jeff Teague, right? Like, that's not one of his brothers or anything, right? That's him.
Not Marquise,
and then I saw it and I was like, how have I not heard more about that? Because he's been good in the NBA for quite a while. And so
he's played on a few bad teams, so.
That's a really good point. Yeah, there's some teams where you guys go to and they just kind of out of sight, out of mind.
Minnesota and Atlanta will do that to you, up until this season for Atlanta anyway.
Right. All right, Atlanta's the posh team.
Yeah, they're going to be the G League darling this season, right? And it happens, almost yearly. There's a new favorite team. I think that they're this season's Memphis Grizzlies from last year, right? So. I think that's all right. So, Austin, we'll transition out to the last one. What was the most surprising move of the offseason? Number 1 was Gordon Hayward to Charlotte at 54%. John Wall and the Russell Westbrook trade was at 18%. Jeremy Grant to Detroit was 11%. And then Montrezl Harrell to the Lakers at 7%. Also receiving votes were Gasol and Ibaka leaving Toronto for, 2 different LA teams. Drew Holiday to Milwaukee. And then Chris Paul to Phoenix. And Austin, I just want to, refresh your memory that these are general managers bringing this up. So if they're surprised, I think that holds a lot of weight. And for all of these general managers to say that they had no idea that Gordon Hayward was going to Charlotte, it'd be hard to argue with them.
Yeah. We give, at least I do, give Danny Ainge a lot of flack for kind of overplaying his hand and losing Gordon Hayward for nothing more than a trade exception. But it seems like a lot of people were pretty surprised by that. A lot of people inside the NBA. But I wonder too, though, if maybe some of this voting doesn't have to do with the fact that he got the giant contract that he did. And a lot of people maybe didn't see that coming. Maybe that has something to do with it.
They did not specify that, by the way.
So. That's what I mean. I don't know. That could, that would go into my thinking like, holy cow, I can't believe not only did Gordon Hayward go to Charlotte, but he got a 4-year, $120 million deal. I wouldn't give that guy $80 million, or just something like that. But Montrezl Harrell is one that I thought, was pretty surprising. He seemed like somebody that was going to get a big money long-term deal and sign for less per year than, that center for Miami, whose name I can never remember. Myers Leonard.
Yes, you're welcome.
That still blows my mind that he got, $40 million for 2 years, and Harrell only got $19 million per year for 2 years. So I think everybody that's on this list is pretty good.
Yeah, and I think that Harrell obviously, I think probably could have made more money if he really wanted to. So I don't think it was a fact that, he was evaluated to be that cheap on the market by everybody. But, Austin, that's going to put our time, going over this general manager survey to a close. There's a whole bunch more that we could have dove into, including rookies and, who would make the best NBA head coach and things like that. But for everybody who wants to learn a little bit more about the survey. It's actually available to open to the public at nba.com. So please go and check that out. And we just appreciate everybody stopping in and listening to us here on your Christmas holiday, your holiday break, here on the Nothing But Net channel on Dash Radio. Austin, I just want to give it to you, man. And, if there's anything nice you want to say to the people and before we go, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. Everybody, Merry Christmas. Thanks for listening in again. Stephen and I have been working hard, putting out a lot of extra content. If you missed it, go check out offtheballnetwork.com. Go check out, our YouTube channel, because we just spent 2 hours last night giving everybody Christmas gifts, all the NBA teams. And it was a lot of fun. I know Stephen loved it. I know I loved it. You get to see us in our Santa Claus hats. So we got to kind of let loose a little bit. And, it's too bad we didn't get through the whole list, but obviously, we did get through the majority of it, the big ones. The one that I would have liked to go over that we're not going to get to is definitely who would you want taking a shot with the game on the line. I was pretty surprised by the outcome of that one. And then I would have loved to get to talk about the toughest player in the NBA, because I think that's a pretty funny question. I don't know how you don't pick Steven Adams. I think he ended up winning that one, but I don't think the guy feels pain. We've seen some crazy things from him over the years. So this was a lot of fun. Thanks for doing it with me, Steven. This was a good idea on your part. I'm glad we got a chance to go over this. I think it's interesting. It's something that you don't really hear a whole lot about outside of, they show the top 5, player from each position or whatever, and that's about all you get. So it was cool to kind of really dive into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And back to Steven Adams, he did star in the Aquaman movie. So, I mean, how much more tough can a person get? So, that.
We saw what happened when he got kicked in that one game in the playoffs, and, it looked like it didn't even happen.
Yeah, I hope the dude's foot was okay.
Right, exactly. I would have been crying.
Yeah, those things are made of steel. And if you need any more reference of what we're talking about, YouTube is always available.
I was going to say, just go check it out. It's pretty interesting.
All right. Well, and as for me, Austin, this was a fun episode, and I appreciate, as always, being able to do this with you. Thanks for making time with me here during this holiday time to, just talk about the game that we love. And, we'll be back again on our normal time on Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. You can catch Breaking the Game show here on the Nothing But Net channel on Dash Radio every Monday and Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. But Austin, I just want to encourage everybody to go to offtheballnetwork.com for all of your sports needs. You can find our content and everybody else's content. It's a lot of great stuff from, NFL, hockey, basketball, college sports, MLB. We're going to be adding UFC and MMA and stuff like that here soon as well. And we're all wrestling fans. So, you get a little bit of everything at offtheballnetwork.com. So please go and check that out. But Austin, Merry Christmas to you and your family, man.
Yeah. Thank you. You too, Stephen. Good luck. Maybe you'll get the best Christmas present ever and have a new baby for Christmas Day. We'll see.
I'm telling my wife right now, that we're going to be having a baby on Christmas, and it's going to be, the best thing ever for a child is to, share a birthday with baby Jesus, and you get your birthday and Christmas presents all at once. So.
That part of it, the first part of it is definitely cool, but as somebody that was born 10 days before Christmas, it kind of sucks growing up that close to a holiday. I'll be completely honest.
I'm sure it is, but Austin, just thanks again. But for you, the viewers and listeners, just appreciate all the love and support that you've given us all year long. We'll be helping y'all at the beginning of the new year coming up soon. But for the Nothing But Net channel here on Dash Radio, for the Off the Ball Network, for my co-host Austin Carr, myself, for the Breaking the Game show, for the game of basketball at large, Austin, we're everywhere. We just want to wish you and yours a very Merry Christmas.
Even speaks for everyone.
Yes, I do that, and I said do. But Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year, and we'll be catching up with you guys next time. Much love, everybody.
Have a good one.